Donald Trump has signed an executive order making it illegal to burn the flag of the United States of America. My name is Peter Wiggin, and if you like this video, if you enjoy it, please leave a like and subscribe, and leave a comment as well. It helps boost us in the algorithm, get it to more eyes, so more people can know what's going on in this country. Anyway, let's get into the news. So President Trump just signed an executive order directing the DOJ to pursue 1 year in prison for those who burn American flags in the street. So I have a news article from Fox News right here stating such. The title is, one second. The title is Trump Flag Burning Executive Order Could Flip First Amendment on Its Head with New Court. New directive seeks to clarify First Amendment scope after Supreme Court protected flag burning in 1989. And this is happening real time. This just was signed today. Videos are just coming out today. So this article says President Donald Trump and his administration are likely set to challenge a Supreme Court ruling that protected the burning of the American flag under the First Amendment with a new executive order calling for those who desecrate the U.S. flag while inciting violence or breaking other laws to face prosecution. The executive order, which Trump signed Monday morning, directs the Attorney General to prosecute those who violate laws in ways that involve desecrating the flag and to pursue litigation that will clarify the scope of the First Amendment as it relates to flag desecration. Burning the American flag, however, has already been litigated, with the Supreme Court ruling in 1989 that it is a form of symbolic speech that is protected by the First Amendment. So this next section gives a bit of history as to what that 1989 case was and what precedent there is and has been in the Supreme Court regarding flag burnings, regarding the First Amendment and its extent regarding freedom of expression. And so this article continues saying the 1989 case was centered on political protester Gregory Lee Johnson. And if you've taken any like AP U.S. history class or AP U.S. government class, you've definitely heard of this case. It's one of the hallmark cases in American history. And it says, who burned the American flag in 1984 outside the Republican National Convention in Dallas in protest of President Ronald Reagan's re-election. America, the red, white, blue, we spit on you, protesters chanted as Johnson lit the flag on fire, according to details in the case called Texas v. Johnson. Johnson was charged under the Texas Venerated Objects Statute, a state law that prevented individuals from vandalizing respected objects such as the U.S. flag. Johnson was found guilty in 1985 and sentenced to 1 year behind bars and a $2,000 fine, but appealed the ruling. The Supreme Court agreed to hear the case in 1989, with the nation's highest court ruling a 5-4 decision that burning the American flag was protected speech under the First Amendment. The Supreme Court held a conservative majority at the time. And now here we have some opinions or some statements as to what those judges back then, the justices back in 1989, thought about the subject, the ruling that they gave in the opposing opinion. Justice William J. Brennan, a Democrat nominated by former President Dwight Eisenhower, issued the majority opinion and argued that the government may not prohibit the expression of an idea simply because society finds the idea itself offensive or disagreeable. And now that sounds like a common conservative opinion at this point in the modern day, at least over the past decade. That's kind of what we've been hearing from conservative circles. It makes sense. You could say that right now on Twitter and everyone would be like, yeah, forks are found in the kitchen, bro. It goes on to say, we can imagine no more appropriate response to burning flag than waving one's own. No better way to counter a flag burner's message than by saluting the flag that burns. No surer means of preserving the dignity even of the flag that is burned than by, as one witness here did, according to its remains, a respectful burial. The majority opinion read, we do not consecrate the flag by punishing its desecration, for in doing so we dilute the freedom that this cherished emblem represents. And so in a very eloquent way, the majority opinion says, look, the way that this goes is through the freedom of expression that this country grants and has always granted from the beginning, one of the foundational pieces of this country outlined in the first article of the Bill of Rights. You can burn a flag, and that's your freedom of expression, showing your frustration towards the government and its policies and its current state. And under that same protection, I can call you a traitor. I could say that you're turning away from the country. I can say that you're not loyal, and that's all in my right too, and that's how it's been from the beginning. I've recently been reading a book called Benjamin Franklin, An American Life by Walter Isaacson. I might have mentioned it before in a past video. It's a great book. All of his biographies are. And it really gets to show you how fervent and how vociferous some of the opinions that people wrote in newspapers were back then. If you think politics being a knife fight is a new thing, or something that has only been around for 2 or 3 decades, if you're pretty young, if you're in your 20s like me, then it might be a shock to you to realize that, yeah, this has actually been the case for hundreds of years. Since the beginning, in issues regarding the Stamp Act or the Townshend Act, or even regarding the Articles of Confederation after the U.S. declared independence, and you had the fight between the Federalists and Anti-Federalists, something that is commonly covered in U.S. history and U.S. government classes. But back in these days, there were no pulling punches. People would say things, people would slander each other, they would not pull any punches when it comes to political speech. And that's how they liked it. That's how the founders liked it. They saw that freedom of expression that was inherent to the United States, and they saw that it was lacking in other countries in Europe, and they said, this is good. This fruit is what we want this country to bring forth. And that's how it has been since. And now you have had some discussions regarding the issue. I mean, this case of flag burning was only in 1989. In the grand scheme of the history of the country, that's not a long time. And I think it mentions it a little bit later. It talks about Virginia versus the United States, in which, I can't find it right now, but it talks about it. And you can look this up as well, but it's Virginia versus the United States, I think the name of the case was. And it was a discussion over cross burning, and if that is protected under the First Amendment. And essentially the ruling of that case was, yes, the burning of the cross in of itself is a freedom of expression, but if it is done for the intent to intimidate people, then that is not protected, because it's a completely different crime. Intimidation and the freedom of expression in general are two different things altogether, wholesale. And so this isn't a new thing at all. Now, let's get into some of the discussion. You've heard some of my opinions on this. Being able to express yourself, even through doing things such as burning a flag, should be protected under the Constitution. It's pretty part and parcel with what's going on. Now we have some tweets right here regarding the subject. This one given by Christopher Skelly, and he says, burning the American flag is protected speech under the First Amendment, period. Being an advocate of free speech is recognizing and advocating for all speech to be free, even that which you may disagree with. Those who advocate for laws against flag burning are anti-American. And now I don't know any of this dude's background. I don't know if he's conservative or if he's liberal. Liberty-minded libertarian is what he says in his bio. I haven't seen this dude before, but his statement rings true, and it should ring true to anybody that has been in the political space over the course of the past decades, especially conservatives. Because there have been issues in the past couple years regarding people that have been prosecuted for doing things like burning flags. In fact, back in 2019, I can pull this up now, an Iowa man, this is an article from NBC News, an Iowa man was sentenced to 15 years after burning church's LGBTQ flag. Adolfo Martinez said he tore down the pride flag because he opposes homosexuality. Hate crime and habitual offender charges enhanced his prison sentence. And now, that's a cope, right? What is a hate crime? How do you define a hate crime? Should a hate crime actually be prosecuted more than some other crime that is violent or that harms somebody in terms of battery, in terms of assault? And should the burning of a flag be considered such? And so we've already seen people being prosecuted because freedom of expression laws haven't been followed. And here we have another tweet from Representative Thomas Massie, a very outspoken individual in modern politics. This was from June 11th, and given the context of this was happening right when you saw those big ICE protests, and you saw people in the streets waving Mexican flags and burning American flags. And Thomas Massie at that time said, burning your own American flag is nenarded, which is a great word. Let's use that more often. But it's not illegal, nor should it be. No one should want a federal government so powerful that it can lock you up for a year for burning your own stuff. Thankfully, our Constitution prohibits Congress from making such stupid laws. And now he's kind of eating his words, although not necessarily. He talks about Congress being prohibited from making such a law. But then it's Donald Trump signing an executive order stating such. And so Thomas Massie comes out today, the 25th of August, saying flag burning, whether it's an American flag he posts or a Jewish or Israeli flag, a flag of the state of Israel, is covered by the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. Neither Congress nor the president nor a judge can make it illegal. And so I say I agree with that. I think it's part and parcel of what's going on. You shouldn't have your visa revoked, as a lot of students have, for protesting Israel, even if that protesting involves burning of a flag. And then we have right here a guy named American Warrior for Christ. Again, I've never seen this person before, but I think his words ring true to what's going on in this situation. Something is really wrong in America when people are being arrested for taking down or burning sexual perversion flags. But burning the national ensign is considered to be protected by the First Amendment. Good on Trump for protecting our national ensign. And so this is taking it the wrong way, I think. He's talking about a precedent of people being thrown into prison for burning an LGBTQ flag. I don't think that's good. But instead of saying that's not good and burning the American flag, or being prosecuted, for burning the American flag is not good, he doubles down saying, if we're going to prosecute people for burning LGBTQ flags, we should prosecute people as well for burning the national ensign or the American flag. Now, I disagree with that. I think we should go in the opposite direction. Again, just like I said before, it's your right to burn the American flag. It's a freedom of expression outlined in the First Amendment to the Constitution, the First Amendment in the Bill of Rights. But it is also my obligation, I could say, but also within my rights to say that you're a traitor. And now, I don't know where the government's going to go in the next 10 years. I don't know where it's going to go in the next 5 years. I don't know what amendments are going to be enacted, what laws are going to be put into place. But what I can say is, and I'm talking to other conservatives right now who may be for prosecuting people that have burned the American flag, you don't know where the government's going to be in another 10 years either. Seeing what has gone on in the past 10 years, I don't have enough trust in any institution at all within this country, besides my church, I guess, to state that I am comfortable upholding all of its decisions and all of its executive orders within the next 5 years. There may be a time in the next decade that it's going to be me or people that I associate with that are burning these flags, and I don't want them to be in prison for doing so. I want it to be well within the rights of the freedom of expression and the freedom of protest. Now, if it's damaging other people's property, that's a completely different scenario. That can be prosecuted as vandalism. That can be prosecuted as destruction of property. But as a freedom of expression, it's within the rights of the Constitution. And personally, I think that the court will uphold its 1989 decision stating such, even with the conservative supermajority in the Supreme Court that is currently upheld. I do think that this is going to be struck down as unconstitutional. I don't think people are going to be prosecuted for burning American flags. I think what's going on is Trump is trying to throw a bone to his base. He's trying to throw bones because there's been a lot of stuff in these past couple weeks that has really, really broken up the MAGA coalition that we saw going in full swing last September, last October, last November, right before the election. There was a lot of unity. And since then, there's been chips away, like a pickaxe chipping away at a statue, at a piece of stone or some edifice. We saw this with the H-1B visa debate back in December. We saw it again with the Epstein files being not released or being covered up by the Trump administration and by the Department of Justice. And the Attorney General, people like Pam Bondi, people like Kash Patel, people like Dan Bongino. And now we're seeing it again with Trump just announcing that he is going to be able to sign in 600,000 Chinese visas for students to come study in our country. His coalition is kind of falling apart. People are saying, hey, you're not actually doing what we voted for. In fact, a lot of what you're doing is against what we'd hoped this administration was doing. And so this seems to me an attempt of Trump to cool his coalition, to bring them together again. But in reality, it's just a shallow shadow of the might that he once held. And what it is doing is not bringing together his coalition, but further splitting them down into these groups, the group that thinks it's okay to prosecute people for burning the flag, and those that don't. Anyway, which side of that debate do you fall on? Do you think that people should be prosecuted for burning the flag? Do you think that because it is the American flag, it holds a special significance that lies outside the freedom of expression, and it is truly desecration of a venerated object? I don't know. Actually, I do know. My personal opinion is that that shouldn't be the case. But I leave it up and open for debate. Leave a comment on this video. It helps boost it in the algorithm. I'm going to try to release these videos at least once a day, maybe twice a day if I have enough time. If you like it, share it with a friend. Get them in on the debate. Have a fun little discussion with the people around you. And I'll see you in the next one.